I'm Linda Salheim. I'm an artist and welcome to my studio. I've been designing things for many years. I've worked on video games, I've worked on special effects projects for film, and I've worked on all kinds of design, even fashion, 2D and 3D. Now that we're moving on with our design project, we're going to look at the next phases, which we're going through ideate and prototype. Now I've really kind of done my ideation phase. I've done some rough sketches. I've found my reference. I'm starting to think about color, all of the things that I'd like to do with my garden. As you can see from my images, that I have a lot of different textures and colors and shapes going on here. And one of the next things I'd like to do is go into 3ds Max and block this out roughly with just primitive shapes. We won't get into color and you won't see our textures, but we'll be able to see if sort of our overall shape is working and the size of our garden is working the way we'd like it to. Now I'm in 3ds Max and I'm going to show you a few things that I'll do during in my prototyping stage, which we look at as previs, which is very common in games and film and even in architectural visualization, to roughly block things in so that you can get an idea for size and shape. This won't look exactly like our final model when we're using our library of already created assets, but this will be very helpful to us to know if our size works and our heights of our trees and plants and all of that stuff. So this is a very common way to work. So the first thing I did was make a plane in my space, and that was quite easy. I just went into the primitives and created a plane, and I did this in the top viewport. And then I opened the material editor, and you'll learn more about this as you go along, and I brought in a material which is actually just my rough little sketch of my garden. And I made the plane so that it was the correct size, 20 by 20 feet, which is about what I'm thinking for my garden. And if I hit the little quick render here, you'll see that, it's pretty clear, even though it looks rough in the viewport. After I attached the material to the plane object, which was my sketch, I went in and just dragged out basic primitives and started to lay out shapes so that I can get a feel of what my garden looks like. When I first showed you the plane with the map on it, I had hidden all these objects so you could get an idea of it. Now I've unhidden them, and you can see this is a nice little space. It's a little bit small. The plant sizes can vary. I can move those around easily and change things, but this is a great way to just get a visual. These would be little trees or maybe a rose bush. These in the back I'm seeing are my palm trees. This would be my fountain, little shrubs and flowers here. If I turn this around using the Alt key and holding down, you can see this is my little gate, and these would be my benches, these being hedges. Just following through with my drawing, and this is very, very simple to do, and it helps you get a visual. Now the other thing that I do, and you'll see this red cylinder here, and I like to do this is a 5'5" tall person, or a 5'10" tall person. And I attach a camera just about where the head would be, and if I click in my perspective viewport and hit C, you can see that this is what the person would be seeing. This is a target camera. And this is the way I like to do this. So if you look in the perspective viewport, but yet if I move this in the top viewport, I'm just moving the target camera around and I'm getting an idea for what a person about that height would see when they walked into my garden right at the front gate. So they'd get a nice view of the fountain and they could walk over and sit down. And so this is very, very helpful. If I go into one of the other viewports, I can lift the target up, and you'll learn more about this as you move along with the project, but this is just a handy little way to get a view for what you're doing. And it's very simple prototyping and very, very effective. Now that we've looked at all the different phases of design, we're going to take a look at our final stages, refine and solution. In this area, we're going to sort of reiterate everything we've looked at, and we're going to cover how the elements and principles of design and how the great little visual design app can play a role in helping you with your work. As I said, this is a great tool for reference. So going over some of the things that we did, collecting reference, doing sketches, looking at things like our garden was a radial design, texture was very important, color also a vital part of our project. You can see how learning about these things can play a role in your work, the various color schemes. Then moving on to blocking in our prototype and looking at our define stage and our ideation stage, different ways we can do that. We can do that with 3D, we can do it with sketches. The importance of things like proportion, form, foreground, middle ground, and background, and how you can work with these to make your project much more interesting. And as you move into working with the assets that are already created for you in the project libraries for the futuristic city, the transportation center, and the jungle scene, you'll see how you can use these tools to make your compositions more interesting. In the jungle scene, for instance, color is going to be a vital part of it. And how you place the plans, the basic layout of the design. So use these assets to really explore and create interesting things, and then you can take different shots of them from different camera angles and understand how you're dealing with proportion and shape and color. All very interesting and a great learning process for you in terms of exploring your design education. You look at something like the transportation center here and how we have a linear shot and the different kind of story that might tell than if you were up close looking at one of those chairs. And then the futuristic city. All of these great places to tell stories with design. So your final projects, here's some examples of them, and just remember that design is important.